and I will present you this webinar today. So I just turn on my camera so that everybody can see my face, but I will then turn it off later so that we don't consume all the bandwidth. So thanks again for joining us. We would like to tell you that this session will be recorded. So that's part of this webinar, and also you have a chat that you can use to write all your questions and comments to all participants. So again, welcome, and let's get started. Okay, here the agenda, just to provide you a little bit of orientation. So we will have a short introduction. I'll try to keep it very short. And then we'll jump to the two topics, main topics of today. So first one, how to successfully run user trainings over multiple countries and languages, which is really the focus of today. And then we'll also have a overview of the Trailhead from Salesforce. And then the last point will be the question and answer session and discussion in cases we have this need. We will use about 1 hour for the presentation, and then we have another 30 minutes for discussion. So for the ones that just joined, I'd like to remind you that this session is recorded, and you can write in the chat all your questions. Okay, so I now leave the word to John.
Good morning, everybody. I turn on my camera as well, just to say hi. I'd like to just shortly introduce myself and Nexell. My name is John Sass. I'm Nexell's managing partner, and I'm very happy that you're able to join us today. I'll be here for the length of the session as well as for the Q&A. And I'm very pleased that we're able to host this session for you today with our joint partner, UI. Just short about Nexell, as you see on the slide, Nexell was Europe's first certified Salesforce.com partner, as well as Salesforce.org for nonprofit organizations. We are a Swiss-based consulting partner company with offices around Switzerland, almost split 50-50 between the German and the French part. We cover all areas of Salesforce, all clouds, all products, both for nonprofit and commercial business. We work and support all types of companies in various industries, from small startups to mid-sized, small, medium-sized businesses, as well as global enterprises. Even though we're a Swiss-based company, we are working with many global companies around the world. Our business is almost split 50-50 between international and local. And we have many different focuses and expertise in different types of industries, basically to support you with your Salesforce needs. So as I said, I stay here for the session, and we can talk a little bit later. Thank you very much. Back to you, Francesco, please.
Thank you, John. Perfect introduction. And so I'd like also to introduce UI. UI is a small Salesforce partner, which is serving also Switzerland, but mostly south of Switzerland. It's a small and new company, and it's serving all services of CRM implementation, multi-language, with many years of experience in the CRM domain. And today is jointly helping us in this webinar. Okay, so let's jump into the real topic here. How successfully run user trainings over multiple countries and languages. And this is really the topic of today and is based on past experiences we have and had with our multinational client. So we would like really to bring up here a condensed version of multiple trainings and Salesforce implementations that we run over more than 10 or even 12 years in with multinational companies. Okay, so let's start from situations or scenarios. Let's start to frame us. So we are all coming from probably another meeting, or we are doing some work. Now we start to get slowly into the topic. So we are talking about training or Salesforce training, but that there are some areas you will recognize that are not really only related to sales, but that can be also even broader. So let's start to think about now some training scenarios. So as an example, let's think about the functionalities. For example, I give you a few examples here. So new marketing program is hosted in Salesforce. What is this program about? I mean, okay, let's think about, we want to beat the market in our Eastern European countries, Russia and Ukraine, for instance. And we have now a new marketing program which is going to be implemented that will help us beating the market there. So our management was delivering to us this program, and we did all the implementation inside Salesforce, and now we need to train our users because we need to have the, all our sales reps and marketing plus sales back office people need to be very well informed about this program. So the management goal is very clear. We have a new marketing program, a new implementation of some functionality. This might be one of the training scenarios that we need to solve. Another one, which is very common in these years, is the Gdpr rollout. Despite Gdpr is not really a Salesforce specific topic, or not only a Salesforce specific topic, Gdpr sometimes is really, let's say, using Salesforce as a system of records, and therefore Salesforce is very important to run it. So that might be also another broad functionality. So GDPR needs to be rolled out in all countries of our organization. That is another scenario. So let's start thinking about it. Another one might be there is a new customer segmentation that we want to bring up in our master data. And this new customer segmentation has a strong influence on the variable compensation for our sales reps. That's another scenario that we would like to implement. So there might be more, like some new products or new processes, like change management, for instance, or new policies. So if you want to tell us or to just to brainstorm a little bit, you can use the chat functionality and you can write, what are your training scenarios? What are your next ones? You can write them in the chat if you want. And then we can eventually use them for the discussion later. So in a multi-language and multinational company, you have some challenges. So if you deploy a new functionality, it's not really given that everything will be just going very smoothly and everybody knows at the 100% of that new functionality or implementation you're doing. Of course, I mean, we all have different background, different skill set. So if you see, the first challenge is really that the background and the skills of the people is different. And for instance, we have sales rep. I mean, thinking about the examples we did just before. So we have sales rep that talk all in a local language. For example, in Russian or in French or in Chinese. Or our users are not really nerds or technical savvy users. Don't like technology, so they really push back a little bit on that. Or there are even new devices that are involved, like an IoT, or even more simple, let's say, simple iPads. So these might be some challenges of backgrounds and skills. But then, of course, there are many more, like products or processes challenges. So like I mentioned before, like a new GDPR or new sales process, or even other challenges like we have a local leadership that wants to control all. So you might, I mean, if you live in a multinational organization, you know that local leadership want many times to show that they are the ones that are generating the business. I mean, frankly speaking, they want to control everything that is coming, and you might have this barrier when you want to run or roll out a training, or even cost. Yeah, cost is also another challenge. So we, depending on the model, of course, if you think about, you have one trainer going and visit each and every single office of your organization, and which knows Russian, French, Chinese, German, Italian, etc. I mean, that might be very expensive. So if you have any other challenges, so I'll give you a minute, think about that. You can write them in the chat. Like I see that we are getting some needs already of training. I'd like also to understand if you faced any challenges, any of these challenges that I just mentioned, or even other challenges. I mean, there are many more challenges that you can face with trainings. Okay, let's continue. And let me now explain a little bit the best solution that we found over years to approach training in a multinational environment. So this is the train the trainer approach. So train the trainer is a framework for training potential instructors or experts that aims to enable those trainers to be themselves the trainers of the other people in the organization. Does it look familiar? So it depends a little bit on the size of the company. You might already have put in place this type of trainer approach. If it is a small multinational company, probably you never tried it because your final attendees are just 1 or 2 people and you don't face those challenges that I mentioned before. But that's a little bit the idea. So now I will go into some steps that we use usually when we do this type of trainings. So is a 3 steps approach. So step number 0, and I didn't want to put 1 because it's really a 0. You don't start if you don't have it. You need to set up your objectives. You need to design your structure of the training, creating the material, and start planning and communicating. Then in step 1, we have the train into the small group. We want to empower, drive the value, and inspire our trainers. And of course, we need to be careful, which to some risk. So, like the broken telephone game risk. So you say one word, and then finally the word is completely changed. And step number 2 is the real, let's say, rollout of the training to get all our users or your users getting the final training, going to the last degree of granularity in the company. So let me now go a little bit more into these steps. So step 0, oh, sorry. Okay, this is the right slide. Okay, so first of all, set up our training objectives. Goal is number 1. So, for example, goal can be, like I mentioned, one of these examples before, get the new marketing program running in Eastern Europe, for example. Or I see other goals here in the chat. Roll out Salesforce Outlook plugin. Or there is another one here, policies workshop that can be used to influence employees' stress levels. Or another one is onboarding of new team member during Corona times. So you need to have goal clear in mind, and together with goal is of course also important, sometimes comes a little bit together, to have also the audience in mind. And when I say the goal, which is to onboard a new team member during the Corona time, I mean, the audience is very clear. The audience is the new team member, but needs to be well defined. The timeline is also important because that will influence step 1 and 2. So getting or understanding the timeline will then get a kind of impact in step 1 and 2. And so designing and the training structure and the measurement and the content is also very important. And this is the real driver for the training. So if you don't have that, you cannot really start. So for example, specify the framework and the topics of the training. So your training, for instance, needs to touch accounts, contacts, opportunities, and campaign object for the new marketing program that you have in mind. Or it needs to touch account, contact, master data, and sales process, opportunity management if you want to onboard a new team member for sales into Salesforce. So that needs really to be very well set up. Then training assessment and measurement. So I mean, this is a little bit like how can we measure our objective, our goal. So for instance, users are running on their own with, let's say, a good degree of efficiency after the training. So that might be one of the measurements. So you don't need to, so you have efficient users running that new functionality that you just implemented, and they don't need support, or they need a very few support. And of course, the creation of the training material, I will repeat it probably another time, but let me start doing it now. Content is king. So if we don't have the content, we don't have any training, and the content is really the center of the training. So creating training material is of course very important. In step 0, all material should be built upfront so that trainers are fully in line with the topics. Okay, the last part, but also not less important, and you see, I'm trying to put some emphasis in many of these points, because those are really important. And if we miss one, then we have a little problem. First one, ask your management to support you. That is really that is probably not always done from many trainers, but it's an absolute must. If you want really to succeed with your training, you need to ask your management to support you. This helps to drive a consistent message across the organization, and usually, if that is coming from the top, is also very well listened. And of course, to get a clear plan that meets the logistic needs and the business goal is also needed. So try to be realistic in terms of time and resources, but also be fixed. This is step 0. Let's now go to the step number 1. Okay, so we talk already about content. Content is king. So the minimum content we need to have is some slides, some presentation. But don't forget to put some real life or hands-on examples. So that is also very, very important. That's exactly what I did at the beginning of this training, when I said, okay, let's try to think about some examples, so some scenarios. So you can now recognize that giving you a real life example is helping you to understand the topic better. So that is very important. And then it's always great to have a Salesforce sandbox organization ready to support your training, to give your trainers the flexibility to test in a safe environment without thinking, oh, now I will destroy the work of my colleagues, or I mean, I create some mess, or even in the worst case, people don't think and they just test in the live system, and then you have a problem. So that's a little bit the advice to have the Salesforce sandbox org. Of course, in step number 1, the trainees must be selected carefully. So it should be a small group of trainers. They should be communicative, skilled, so that you have the full, let's say, understanding of what you're talking about, and you can be sure that later, when the message is passed, you don't have the broken telephone game again. That is one of the biggest issues that we had and we saw in the past. Of course, people involved in the project is even better. And of course, I mean, again, this is also another point. Well-respected people, committed people, it's always good to have them. Logistic is also important in step number 1. Ideally, you should run the training for trainers in one shot, and this should be done in one language. And usually this is English, depends from the organization. There are some organizations where the language is French, for instance. There might be some other organization that use other languages, but like kind of best practice, usually the language is English. And of course, location, face-to-face is preferred. And of course, during the Corona time, we now prefer web meetings, but that might change in later in the next month or year. So face-to-face is even the preferred way. And timeline. So when you think about phase, so step number 1, you need to have well in mind that it takes then some time to prepare step number 2. So you need to consciously plan it probably a couple of weeks before the step number 2. Step number 2, if you remember the first slide was the European map. Step number 2 is the real training that gets to the user, the final users. So content needs to be exactly the same like a step 1. So the content that you actually prepared in step 0 in the planning and you used in the step number 1, it needs to be exactly the same. It needs to be used in step number 2. Depending on the language, I mean, you might want to translate it in local language. It depends also on your audience, and then you want to also add some local examples, which are always great. I mean, talk with some colleague locally, talk with the step number 1 trainers, get some real life examples. They help really a lot. Attendees, small groups is preferred. So if you organize step 2, you might want in one country where you have, for instance, let me give you a real life example that I lived in the past. So we had to do a training in Russia, and our audience was about 100 different sales reps, and all living in different part of Russia. And you know, Russia is not a small country, and so we built up 7 different small groups of people, of sales reps, and mainly dividing them by sales area and putting a couple of sales area together, the ones that are closer, and then we divided in these 7 small groups. So the groups were about from 10 to 20 people. So we had like one trainer, one main trainer, and one assistant to run during the training, to run some questions or to answer questions and go around the room during the training. So that is that should be like a kind of ideal size of the attendees. You can have even smaller groups. I don't know how does it look to have bigger groups. That might be a little bit more difficult to follow each of the attendees. Of course, you need to get commitment from the training, and driving value is always a good start to get good commitment. Logistic, of course, face-to-face is again preferred. During Corona time, we might be web meeting, and choose a close location and have a good timeline also helps. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Okay, so this is just one of slides. I mean, we can build one complete different training on content. I just wanted to say you that content is king. Again, I repeated myself. So if you have a good training material, you'll be, let's say, 80% of your work is already done, and you will be successful. Let's now jump a little bit into the LMS tool. So what is LMS? It's Learning Management System. So this is Learning Management System. It's a kind of internationally recognized way to learn, and it can be used online or even face-to-face. And it's also a good practice to use that in combination with the trainer model. So driving the content through a LMS tool it's always a good idea. Modern LMS offer great device flexibility, user hierarchies, archive management, supporting various formats, videos, etc. So that's something that you may want to consider as well. Salesforce offers its own way, my Trailhead, and I'd like now to show you a little bit why my Trailhead makes such a great difference. So you probably, if you are in the Salesforce ecosystem, you probably heard about Trailhead. So without the my, it's just Trailhead. Trailhead is Salesforce defines as the fun way to learn, and that includes tons of material to get up to speed in your Salesforce skills, but not only. There are also some other soft skills that are also mentioned. So you see here some numbers. There are more than 500, probably now is even more. This slide has now a few months. Lots of badges. Badges is just like the recognition that you get when you complete one of the trainings. 37 role-based credentials, and I mean that's a great, a really great system to learn. So Salesforce wanted to a little bit reinventing learning with this, and they did that first internally in Salesforce, and then they saw, oh, but this is really a great product, so let's open it up to the public. So with that, they let's say invented, or they rebranded it to My Trailhead. So My Trailhead is really a LMS that can be put for one company. So it's really specifically designed for one company, is internal. So if you have My Trailhead, you don't, so you have trainings that are running internal in your organization. Those are not public to the normal Trailhead. So it just stays inside your organization. So My Trailhead is helping you scaling your employees onboarding, supercharge productivity with this bit-sized content, and of course increasing Salesforce adoption. You can mix up internal My Trailhead with external normal Trailhead content. And of course, helps you to cultivating your company culture, because you are able to really fully, let's say, build your content. So you have full control of the message that passes inside your content. And of course, then also creating integrated learning journeys. So it's not only about having one training here and there, but you can build some learning journey or learning path that helps you to build up some type of skills at different levels in your organization. My Trailhead, it's customizable, so you can brand it also with your logo, your brand color. You can build your trainings, your units, modules, trails with your content. And like I said before, you can build up some guided learning path or journeys. And I will show you later in a short demo how this can look like. You can check your status. You will gain points. Oh, you gain badges, exactly like the Trailhead. So this gamified way of learning, where you are actually pushed, and competition is also a little bit pushed, you know, to make some fun in the learning. So let's try to see who gains more points among our colleagues. I mean, um, this is really helping a little bit to improve also the how can I say, the easy approach to the training. So it's not always boring stuff, but is also some learn and some fun with learn. And trail tracker, I will mention that also later. Trail tracker is an application that is helping you to monitor, but also to push trainings across your organization. So Trailhead, it's powered by Salesforce. So it's fully integrated. So you don't, I mean, you actually go into another screen, but actually you can go to My Trailhead directly from the Salesforce page. And you can see here it's multi-device, so you can learn. Currently, it's on the iPhone, Android. It's coming in 2020, and of course, you can learn it in front of your PC. So these 4 points are very important. I already mentioned them, but these are really the first point. The bite-sized content or learning content is really probably the most important, because you can think about trainings, and multiple times when you need to do a training, and let's imagine one compliance training, which is the very boring ones. If you have a long compliance training with 2 hours of reading and eventually also examples, and you need to be concentrated for the full 2 hours. With Salesforce My Trailhead, you are, let's say, obliged in the way you build the content to have very small content pieces, to be really focused on having small chunks, small piece of content. So imagine how you want to eat a elephant. So if you want to eat an elephant, you need to cut it in several pieces. And the same thing it's happening here with My Trailhead. So you have a limit. You cannot build content that is going beyond a certain threshold. So the bite-sized learning content is really key here. So if you are on the go and you want to just learn some new stuff, and you have your commute journey, which is taking 15 minutes, you know that you can easily take one My Trailhead unit and complete it in these 15 minutes. That's a little bit the way of thinking of My Trailhead. It's gamified, as I mentioned, and also personalized, that I mentioned. So now, this is a little bit it. I would like now to jump to the My Trailhead before we reach the final 3 slides. So let me reduce here the screen, or changing it. Wait a second. Okay, so this is My Trailhead. It's a test environment, so you might not really have a full experience here. So this is just I made that on purpose for this webinar for you. And so I just wanted to show you how does it look like? And so it's a real live system. So you see here there is a branded logo. You can see Nexell logo, a little bit of it, and Trailhead in front. And then you have a color coding, which you can change, and you have also some background picture that you can change to make it more close to your company. So if you want, in a way, you don't understand that this is even Salesforce. So with Trailhead, you can build badges, and you see here, if I scroll down a little bit, I have a new badge here. A new badge is, oh, big surprise, how to successfully run trainings over multiple countries and languages. So that is not surprising probably to you, but that's what I wanted to really drive here. So you can really build your content. So if I go to modules here into the into my Trailhead in here, and in this case I have only one, I see all modules that have been built inside my Trailhead that are specific to the company. So this one that you see it here, it's fully customized training that has been built with my Trailhead. Now let's imagine a real life example. And I take one of the examples that have been put into the chat, onboarding of a new team member. So let's imagine that to onboard a new team member, I need to build, I need to have him following a certain number of trainings. Some trainings Salesforce built already for me in the normal Trailhead platform. Some other trainings are specific to my company. For instance, I have some sales process training. I have some product related trainings, and those trainings are inside my Trailhead. So with my Trailhead, I can build some trail mixes, and in here I build one for you, which is called user onboard trail mix. So this is a trail mix, which is a combination of trails that can be taken for either the normal Trailhead or the My Trailhead. So if I click on it, I now see that in this onboarding trail mix, I have some trails. So for sales, in this case, so build up your sales career, accelerate your sales team, get started with Sales Cloud, get to know Salesforce, manage your partner relationship with Sales Cloud PRM. And then finally, I see also some specific information to my company. This is what I just showed you before, is a training that I built with my Trailhead. So in this case, if I go here now, I see the content I created. And yeah, I mean, just jumping on it, I see there are two units for this. One is audience challenges, and the other one is LMS tool can help. It is just an example, so it's not really a full training. I just built that for the sake of the demo, but it's just to show you the potential of mixing up Trailhead with my Trailhead content. Okay, let me go back to the slides. I'd like now to provide you some considerations or challenges that we found with my Trailhead in the last months and year. So the first one, and quite big challenge actually, is content creation. Again, content is king, we know. Content creation takes time. So you can imagine, or you can think about as a kind of reference that to build a complete trail in Salesforce, it takes about 1 week. And this is mostly, it's because the time is spent in creating the content, in delivering really this content, which needs to be bite-sized content, specific content with some good examples, and that's something that takes time. So you always need to consider it. If you want to implement Trailhead, consider that the time that you will spend on content is really high, and you might even want to engage a professional doing that for you. Then most of the time, yeah, you have probably about 5 or 6 hours to build one unit, just as another measurement to how to build content. And yeah, if you think that one unit takes about 6 hours, then you reach this 1 week, or about 1 week, to get to 6 or 7 units. Then monitor your users. So really consider to install the Trail Tracker application, so that you can assign the badges to your users, so the users can see the badges inside Salesforce, and they know that they get a badge because they will get a charter post. And then last but not least, the logistic of Trailhead needs also to be considered. So always keep a version of your training and try to work in a structured way. That helps you to build some good content and have full control of your content releases. Okay, that was it for the presentation. I think we are on time, so we still have some room for question and answer discussion. So let's open now the line. Okay, so don't be shy. I mean, you can always ask questions, of course. I see there are some chat-related examples. Okay, so let's start from the first one. Salesforce Outlook plugin rollout. Okay, that's okay. So if you imagine to build it, or you want to train that, I mean the rollout, the Outlook rollout, from experiences we had, it's not only a training issue. We need to understand very well what is the Office or Outlook Office version, because it might vary among users. So the first thing that we need to make sure is that we have all users running on the same page. Otherwise, it will be a little bit difficult to have a right training, or a real training. So Mark, I got this question from Mark. Do you want to explain a little bit more what you need with the Salesforce Outlook plugin rollout?
Yes, sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark from company Gdpr, and we have 30 entities in the world. And at the moment, we have the old Outlook plugin, which we use to attach emails to opportunities. And we use it also for contacts and events. And now the situation is that we want to jump to Windows 10. And then the old Outlook plugin doesn't run on the new Windows 10. And now I preparing this and set up this in our test environment. And after it runs perfectly, we need to roll out this plugin then for Windows 10. And what I now see is the problem that I have different peoples which needs to be involved. That means for 30 entities, we have on the one side an IT department which needs to train, and the other side the users or the key users. And that is a bit the thing which is difficult, which I see at the moment, that they reach these different groups. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. So I seen that you made a very good analysis. The IT is of course needs to be always involved, because you're dealing with some real IT topic here, which is the installation or physical installation of a plugin on the machines of the users. So I believe that you always need to have them, and eventually even have them as really a very active part of the project. So they need to train inside the organization. They need to train their system administrators to get that that part, and probably to get that learning, that to install properly the plugin, etc. needs to be really something that needs to be done from them in advance before really reaching the users. So you might want to have that point as a milestone. So getting all the IT folks first identified, so who needs to have that type of learning and knowledge, and then you may want to have them all trained upfront before you really start delivering the training to the users, because they will need like in an implementation, they are part of the implementation, that they need to install that to the users, and then you can take the trainer approach, and you can also make a Trailhead unit for that. Is this somehow answering your question?
Yes, thank you, Francesco. That will help. And what also help is that Salesforce come easier, and therefore it is not much to say about the plugin because it is also self-speaking. That's also very great.
Thanks for the question, Mark. Okay, now I follow again the list. And so Eva is writing training need workshop on how policies can be used to influence employees' stress levels. Eva, do you want to say anything more about that? Okay, probably Eva is in mute. Okay, so let's so I don't know much about that. Oh, sorry. Oh, Eva cannot change from mute. Sorry, Eva. Claudia, can you do anything to unmute Eva? Oh, thank you, Eva. You wrote it. My question is on how to run a workshop online. Oh, that's a tough question, and I mean, honestly, I would need to take some time to think about that. A workshop online is always very challenging, but I know there are some tools specifically built for that. So it's not my Trailhead. It's some other tools. So let me discuss with a colleague that has some quite a good experience on that, and then I'll will come back to you, Eva. Okay, the next one is John. Onboarding of new team members during Corona time. Okay, this I think that we discussed that a little bit already. The My Trailhead Salesforce functionalities offers you these trail mixes, and the trail mix is really a combination, is a mix of normal Salesforce Trailhead plus customized My Trailhead. So you can mix everything together, you get trail mix. And with that trail mix, you can really build up your employee onboarding with My Trailhead. That might be very efficient way to do that. We have another question or comment from Thomas. Best practices enforcement. Okay, so you would like to enforce best practices. Thomas, do you want to give us other examples?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. Thomas Jasma from Vistra. Yeah, we implemented Salesforce for Vistra about 3 years ago, and we began with trainings on the locations for different users around the world. But we didn't have at the time a document about policies to follow, best practices, how to create accounts and manage the best way different accounts to avoid duplicates. And yeah, so we diffused later a document about best practices, but they were not really followed. The document, yeah, it was just a document and it was distributed, but it was not really read, I guess. And we end up in our organizations with lots of duplicates and records which are created actually, yeah, with not enough fields filled in, or yeah, which cannot really be relevant in different reports. So now we are going to reshape a little bit of Salesforce, and I want to avoid these mistakes and ensure a better data quality in our new Salesforce environment. And would like to know how we can train users from start following best practice, and is there a specific way to enforce this? Well, educating them, but also tracking that the best practices are really followed. Yeah, the best way to do that, basically.
Thank you, Thomas. That's a great question. So first of all, you might want to understand if you have some other ways to enforce the best practices. So you already have a list of best practices, so you know what you need to do. So sometimes it helps to have some validation rules or some automatic processing of data inside your Salesforce organization, so that people are forced to follow a certain path. And Salesforce offers you also some ways to drive some training message inside your pages. And there are mostly two ways of doing that. One is the path functionality. The path functionality is the functionality that you can put on top of your page, where you have some stages or statuses. I mean, actually, the path functionality works with every pick list. And then you can associate with the path functionality, you can associate some comments, some text comments, and provide examples, so that the people, while working, they see actually a real life example. So they might also recall a training that they did in the past. Also, if they were not really too much getting too much attention to the training, if you put something inside the application, that will help. And then there is also another way to do that, which is to use some Lightning pages. You can use some free text editors and on the Lightning page. And that free text editor is an editor so it's a component. So you can use this rich text field component inside the Lightning page, So you imagine a Salesforce page, and then you have like a free text field where you can put whatever you want, and you can control it with filters. So in case there is a special situation, you can show that part of text. So the solution I'm giving you, it's not really a training-based solution, it's more a Salesforce solution. So I suggest you to follow always the best practices in training. So try to empower your user, try to drive the value. So best practices usually are called like that because there is a lot of value behind the scene. So behind the best practice, you can really find out finally the value. It's more than if you don't follow the best practice most of the time. So if you drive value, if you drive the right value to your users, I'm sure they will take and they will commit to have your best practices. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. I think that that will help. It's not just a matter of training. Well, of course it is, but it's also tracking behind and having the system set up and with the design as well. Some help to to allow user following these best practices, which they may indeed easily forget after training. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. And are there any other question? Okay, good. So in that case, thank you all. So that was great to have you in this webinar. So in case there are more questions that are popping up, you can of course write us. So we are always available. You have our social channels and emails available, and we'll also pack the presentation and send that to you later today. So again, thank you, and I wish you a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.